Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to
Hello.
Desert Streaming. Good to have you back.
Uh-huh.
We've missed you.
I know. I've been sitting here for a week.
It's crazy. He won't leave.
I won't leave. I can sleep on this stool.
So
I'm
today,
hungry.
no, you have your Starbucks cold brew.
Right. My adrenal system is a wreck.
You know what's so funny? Just kind of a side note, but I remember when I first came to Desert Stream, I was I was slightly inflexible in some areas. Maybe a lot of
What are you talking about?
So I had such a judgment against Starbucks.
Oh, because of
Yeah.
abortion rights.
Yeah, all of that. And then
Yeah.
I came to Desert Stream and we drink Starbucks all the time.
I know.
And I love it now.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So whatever that's worth, it's Starbucks is give it a try. That sounds so bad. Okay, so this week we are going to do chapter 10 out of 11. So we're almost done with our series. If you haven't gotten the book, you certainly should. shopdesertstream.org. And you can revisit all of these videos as you take a dive into this book. I also recommend too, if you want to do like a book study and watch the discussions that we've had, might be a worthwhile adventure for you. So today we're going to talk about temperance and integration.
Mm-hmm.
So the last of the cardinal virtues that we're speaking about, which is honestly a really great virtue. I know I say that every single week, but this one is a great one to kind of start winding us down.
Yeah, because it's the thesis for chastity. More than the others lead up to temperance, and chastity simply falls under temperance.
Right.
And so it's not like, oh, there's 4 cardinal virtues and the 5th is chastity.
Mm-hmm.
Chastity takes its place securely under temperance.
So it's a subset of temperance.
It is, yeah. I didn't know that till I read Pieper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in the Summa and Thomas Aquinas, it's under where he describes temperance, chastity is. Mm-hmm. So what is temperance?
Yeah. So temperance is the ordering of the different parts of ourselves so that we work as one, meaning one in the individual temple. It's unique in that it's the only virtue that really has to do with the individual. It has to do with my having the awareness and the intention of the different parts of my humanity working together well so that I am well and so that I am treating others well in a prudent and a just manner, employing fortitude to offer myself well. But I actually cannot do that unless I am becoming a temperate or ordered person. And Pieper, and maybe Aquinas, though I don't know for sure, maybe you would know this, probably Aquinas used 1 Corinthians 12, kind of the macro version of the church, different organs, different members working together to creating a whole body. Aquinas took that and said, no, temperance says not macro, but micro. I, as the individual temple of God, need the different parts of my humanity to be working together, not at odds with each other, but in sync with each other. And so I love that. I had a personal experience of this, not in regards to sexuality, because temperance isn't only about sexuality.
Right.
We would tend to see it in that light because of our, the preeminence of chastity in our ministry. But, our parts have much more to do with all aspects of ourselves. And so early on in relationship with Annette, we had a battery of tests about our psychological well-being and how well-suited we were with each other. And this pastor that was serving us was also a psychologist, and he said, "Oh yeah, you guys are, pretty good, pretty ordered. Your mental health is in good shape, but Comiskey, you're on the on the lunatic fringe of being nearly paranoid. You're so subjective in your perception that other people or have a distorted negative view of you. And so this was an eye-opener for me, and it caused me to think, wow, I am so subjective. I feel and experience things and other people very deeply, but sometimes from a skewed perspective, lacking reason. And this pastor, psychologist, was saying, you need to really develop your objectivity. You need to develop a more detached and objective and almost factual understanding of your social relationships, or this is going to create problems in your marriage. You're going to have a skewed suspicion almost of how your wife is seeing you. I'm like, wow. Like I'm in a perilous position.
Did that ring true when he was telling you that?
I think it did ring true. And I think it had to do with this perception, I think significantly because of same-sex attraction, because of bullying, because of some social isolation. Whenever someone is isolated and musing on and developing an idea of self apart from other people, that's a dark subjectivity.
Sure.
And it doesn't bode well. Then you come into capital R reality. You know, I actually have a place at the table. I may have weakness, but it in no ways disqualifies me from bringing my whole self, my whole imperfect self to social settings. In this case, the you-me of a premarital relationship.
Wow.
And so
it makes me kind of think about the value of being in social settings with other guys and how that really helps us launch into opposite sex relating in a kind of very confident way.
A confident way, like kind of get a grip on yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
No, I'm actually not going to honor your exaggerated emotive expression there because it's not temperate.
Yeah.
It really is not very much in touch with reality.
Wow.
And so when you think of that in regards to wounding, perceived trauma, you know, the trouble that I've seen, that's a significant part of healing. But if that's all that we're about, then we actually are going to have a skewed vision of reality, and we're going to interpret things around us in terms of victimhood. And that isn't a very healthy perspective on life.
Yeah.
And so all of this, I think, contributed to my heightened subjectivity, reactivity, and a suspicion that other people were perceiving me badly.
Wow. What were some practicals of objectifying?
Medication. I've been sedated.
Drugs. Heavy drugs.
Yeah, he gratefully was a psychiatrist, and so I have been heavily sedated for the last...
I wasn't expecting that.
No, I think it...
But you do have this look on your face when you're about to say something absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of...
So I just knew
it's
something was up.
No, it's not... It's vaudeville. It's not sophisticated humor. Yeah, so I'm sorry, who are you?
Sorry, the senility is really settling in. What were some practicals of objectifying in the midst of being hyper subjective?
I think it's slowing down and in observing people and thinking that I'm seeing or reading something, kind of stopping myself and saying, actually, that person's, the look on their face or what they didn't say or what they did say, actually don't interpret that in a dark light. Like stop and say, no, that actually you need to detach enough to realize that there probably is a more accurate read on your perception.
It's really helpful.
Yeah. And then I think particularly with Annette was just asking the question, now, is that what you meant by that? or and yeah, it was super helpful. And especially I think in a marriage where hopefully, as you give each other a great deal of space, you learn how to trust each other, and you're just more free. You're less edited in your responses
Right, for sure.
to the hardships of life, towards what I just said or did. I think all of that could have been big ground for reading into her response. And so just kind of taking a step back, detaching a little bit, asking the question, not assuming that casts me in a negative light. All of that, if you think about it, it may seem like, oh, you poor, you're sensitive and bad things happen to you. At the same time, it's very selfish. And it's not like, okay, let's just get on with it. I'm getting stuck a lot.
Yeah.
The Velcro factor is high. And so kind of rubbing that out a little bit and being able to get on with it in more of a forward motion without getting stuck on, you hurt my feelings.
How does temperance make women beautiful and men virile?
Yeah, I love, because again, this chapter in Pieper's The Cardinal Virtues is significantly about chastity, I have to say. And so he is using a lot of allusions in this book about almost the lean virility of temperance. So it's not, and for men, it's not an exaggerated, it's ordered. It is more detached. It's focused, it's intentional. It's being ordered for the purpose of offering oneself well to another person. And I think similarly, a woman who is temperate is going to receive what is good and true and beautiful from a man or a woman in her life, and is going to be able to take that in a way that, kind of fuels her beauty, who makes her more beautiful, perhaps in having to screen out what isn't, but being able to take in what is. And so I think women who arguably are deeper souls, if you will, there's going to be something kind of radiating from their depths, which is luminous and beautiful. An ordered woman who's taking in good things. Yeah. What could be lovelier? And a man who can do the same thing, maybe not with quite the
same depth.
Yeah, but who is inclined and motivated to want to bring order and to offer himself well to others. In this case, say to a woman, this is, I'm learning about these things in relationship to my wife. When I, as a man, am caring for her well and denying myself rightfully to give her something good, trying, sometimes succeeding at putting her first more than not, there's something strong and handsome about that. I mean, I see it in my friends, the men and women alike. I use the example of Mike and Diane Nabraga, and Mike having been intemperate in many ways, sexually speaking, and Diane broken up by it in her own way, damaged, disordered by Mike's intemperance, and being a part of their process now for decades, and so many experiences with them in different phases of their life where I see the beauty of Diane's womanhood, ordered and in a way at peace, knowing that this man really loves her and is mobilizing for her in the different aspects of his life. And then Mike, in turn, being so blessed by her respect of him and her amazing kind of cooperative alongside him as they go through, their life together. So,
I mean, that's marriage specifically, but how does temperance and healthy friendship contribute to one another?
Yeah, I mean, the complement, as good as temperance, applies to friendship and offering oneself in an ordered way to another. I think it's not tricky. I think one has to know what temperance is and be growing in temperance to be a good friend. But I think in turn, good friendship, healthy friendship, makes us more temperate. And in a fallen world, enables us to stay temperate.
Yeah.
When in weak seasons, we might be inclined to become very disordered by going back to an old dispensation, or some old addiction, or some old checking out pattern where in dismay, in discouragement, we want to stoke ourselves with bad drugs, if you will. So chaste friendship, certainly for men like you and me coming out of same-sex stuff, part of the reason we champion friendship and good, intentional male friendship is because we're saying, no, there's something so much better that the temperate man, that the temperate woman can realize.
Yeah.
And that is close, affectionate friendship. And as a temperate man, I don't have to make him a lover. Right. I don't want to make him a lover because it divides the very good thing that I want to be, which is a good friend, a confirmer of his masculinity, not a defiler. And similarly, I need that from him. I don't need a confused or a soft or a false, inordinate need of me from another man.
Right, yeah.
That's not empowering. It might stoke some kind of a savior complex in me. It may stoke a limited, high-octane sensuality. But then after the fall, what do I have?
Right, yeah.
Nothing.
Right.
I don't have a friend anymore. I have a would-be lover that I can't even be lovers with. Because at core, it's disordered.
Yeah.
And so I think what we need is chaste friendship. And those of us who come out of some inordinate affection, unboundaried relating emotionally and physically, we need to cultivate temperance, the ordering of ourselves, so that we can continue to grow as men through ordered relationship. Yeah. Temperance is all about it is about fundamentally my ordering of myself through the power of Father, Son, Holy Spirit, but it also has to do with my being ordered rightfully to my brothers and to the other, the opposite sex. And so temperance is so key to that and to staying ordered, as we know so well, Marco, through the relationships that we intentionally cultivate, staying accountable, telling on ourselves before the fall, connecting rather than detaching and detaching and attaching to something that sickens us.
Yeah. No, it made me think too of, just seeing same-sex attraction as a kind of indication that, oh, I need good, healthy male friendship. And in weaker seasons or moments when it's same-sex attraction is exacerbated for whatever reason, I can read that, and the temperate one would say, I'm gonna find good connection.
Yes.
And I'm gonna allow that to refine me, but also to feed me in good ways.
Yeah, it's centering.
Yeah.
And there is something possibly people that have this history of like, where is this coming from? Why have I had for years, for me, decades, this slight inclination to want to make a man more than he really can be in an ordered way. And that's a familiar, it's certainly secondary. It's not that powerful in my life, but I'm aware of it. So what does this indicate? Yeah. It indicates a need to be intentional about, in a sense, securing the moorings that we need as men through sound relationship with other men.
Yeah, exactly.
And we can do that. And in so doing, we're inviting our friends into, I think, a healthy connectedness that closes the gaps a little bit, takes the edge off the loneliness of Western men, and helps us to go forward towards noble goals. I'll give you an example. I came home yesterday from Poland, putting myself out there big time, and just knowing I'm just new. I'm so depleted here, and I'm coming back into this world where I have lots of responsibilities here, all jet lagging. We have this conclave going on. By the time you see this, the conclave may be over. I hope it's over. I hope we have a new pope. But all of that, it's anxiety for me. I care about the Vicar of Rome, and I want a good one. And so on top of all this, praying without ceasing, trying not to land in anxiety, but prayerfully focusing it, Holy Spirit, onto the conclave. And, we're all represented in the conclave through intercession, right? We all have a hand in it through praying for those cardinals. And, but it was like, wow, I'm honestly, all things considered, I'm running on empty. Yeah. And so to make sure, yesterday I'm focusing on my wife. I'm wanting to ensure her well-being as best as possible. If she's okay, then I'm okay, and drawing life from her. And I had to do some work out in the yard, and I thought, I'm just going to call my friend. I'm just going to call him, see if I can get a hold of him. Nothing in particular. I was okay. There's no temptation or anything, but just wanting to speak with him. Yeah. And just in doing so, just his resonance, the familiarity, kind of just the anchoring, in a sense, the ordering of my soul. And afterwards, there was no great revelation other than bearing with one another, man to man. So strengthening and ordering. Yeah. And freed me for temperance. I was able to get through the day and land what I had to land.
Why is asexuality an enemy of temperance? I like this because, we're talking about heightened sexual attraction, whether they be ordered or disordered or wherever they fall on the spectrum. But speak to us a little bit about asexuality, because I think at times if somebody struggles with, let's say, same-sex attraction or even something like a pornography addiction, there can be almost a resentment towards one's sexual desires.
Or abuse.
Right.
I mean,
true.
I would anchor it even more in early trauma.
Absolutely.
Where sexuality is like terrible.
Yeah.
The opposite sex is, that's the template.
Yeah.
for adult sexuality, me as a child
Mm-hmm.
being utterly disrupted,
Yeah.
disoriented by this intrusion. So I would say so many reasons for us to say I'm just checking out of that altogether. Maybe because of same-sex attraction, the conflicts of that, the conflicts of my addiction, where I just it was shameful
Yeah.
and so powerful. So I think it's Aquinas who said asexuality is the enemy of virtue.
Mm.
And so I think in order, that what that says to me is I don't have the freedom to divorce myself from my longing for connection with other people, whether that's same-sex friendship, whether it's in honoring and dignifying the other sex. I can't check out of that. And that's not just an erotic yes, of course. We're always talking about this longing in the context of dignifying a human being. And so I think, we can't divorce ourselves from our powers of life and love, our sensual responses to other people, and the need to be aware of that, to be accepting of that, and to be integrating that in the context of some good boundaries, at times some good blinders, for the purpose of dignifying another and being aware of, that person's appealing to me. That person is such a beautiful expression of manhood or womanhood that gives glory to God. And I'm going to take ground in temperance and good self-control, although temperance can't be just about that, but I'm going to take ground in it for directing my energies in such a way that confirms what is good and true and right about his or her personhood, including his or her sexual personhood.
So, take, for example, the guy who struggles with same-sex attraction and really struggles with a kind of shame response whenever he feels that.
Yeah.
Like, so when he sees a guy that's compelling, it's like, whoa, instead of thinking, oh my gosh, this is a gift and I can sort of respond in a redemptive way.
Yeah.
Instead it's, I'm going to
flee.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or
Shut down.
exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly scrupulous or what would be your advice in how to train oneself to be more temperate in such situations?
Well, I would use my example of heightened subjectivity instead of like, oh, bad, like, okay, take a step back. That's a fine expression of manhood.
Yeah.
And I don't want to reduce that in our vulgar kind of porn culture. Porn speak.
Yeah.
Even anything you read on the internet, it's so vulgar. It's so crassly suggestive.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it makes it so difficult for that not to be the first word or the first thought or this kind of exaggerated sensual response. And then, as you say, then you add the shame response of, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to have any response. So I think to take a step back and to go, cool off. You're okay. That's the first thing. I take a little detachment and go, you know what, you're okay.
Yeah.
For valuing that man or that woman. And being appreciative of the way that they uniquely are appealing to you.
Yeah.
Someone being appealing doesn't mean they're seducing you or you're being seduced. And I think that heightened scrupulosity, which is, maybe that's bad religious instruction or something. Maybe you're just a very sensitive person and maybe you've made a bunch of bad choices that you're trying to undo by not getting too close to what you perceive as fire.
Yeah.
I tend to think you're usually not that near it, and we're in a pretty Christianized place, so I'm sure sometimes it's more perilous for people.
Yeah.
We don't kind of live in that culture, honestly, because we're so in some ways Christianized, for better and for worse. But I dare say, I think there's an awareness and then a little pause and some simple truth-telling that I think enables us to kind of almost laugh at ourselves a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really helpful.
Yeah.
Because I think that I don't know, I'm seeing increasingly more a kind of scrupulosity when it comes to really turned on Christians, maybe even more so turned on Catholics that I'm thinking about who experience SSA. And it's this shame. It's not quite a shamelessness, which we also see too. Like, this is who I am and I want to identify according to it. But it's this, I wish I didn't even have to go there, but I'm being brought there.
Yes.
So how do I respond? So I think that was really helpful.
Yeah, and I think whenever we're in that kind of shame and that kind of cut it off, we're not really resolving anything. We're probably collecting, or we may be intensifying our own conflict, which then, how does that come out?
Sure.
At night.
Yeah.
With your cell phone.
Sure. Pornography.
And no, I won't. There's probably nothing on that. I can look at that. I can probably get whatever is valuable from that website. And it's like, no, you can't. I mean, something as simple as Instagram can be dangerous in that way.
For sure.
YouTube. Or, whatever. So I think, it's just being a little bit more aware, a little bit more engaged at that seemingly instinctual response and saying, what am I desiring there? And I think that's a part of becoming temperate, becoming ordered within and not so irrational, fear and shame driven.
That's good. Describe godly fear and temperance in pastoral ministry.
Yeah. So I think where people have, and we've talked a lot about this with emotional unchastity, with some of the ways that we can come into desiring to care for people very needy ourselves, and sometimes even with a long history of even taking a slight advantage, misusing our pastoral power for the sake of being the good father, being the one who's going to care for the vulnerable daughter or son. It can be opposite sex or same sex.
Yeah.
And I think being aware that these are dangerous patterns, because the red flag is not necessarily sexual intercourse. The red flag is that I'm actually forming a relationship with you based upon a profound intemperance, a lack of possibly self-awareness, and a lack of an awareness that I'm actually starting to need you to think I'm amazing for caring for you.
Wow.
And I actually get my needs met in this very safe, holy, caregiving relationship. And I've seen some really diabolical things done over years by pastors and lay leaders alike, especially in our inner healing world, where it's like, oh, now I'm the healer. I'm going to be the diver into the deep of all of these souls in my congregation. And my first thought is, well, how are you getting your needs met in civilian life?
Yeah, sure.
Who knows you? Sometimes we go into such caregiving because we have been cared for, or we're just aware of how deeply we've been wounded. And so there is a 2 Corinthians 1, I want to have compassion on you as I have received it. But that doesn't mean that we have integrated the help that we need enough to be a clear and temperate caregiver for others. And so this is where fear of the Lord comes in, because this is where God, in his magnificence and justice and majesty, is like, what are you doing? Who do you think this person is? Do you think this person belongs to you? Do you think this person is made in your image to do with him or her what you want? At that point, God honestly is not as concerned about me. God is concerned about the just God is concerned about that one who is in the vulnerable position. I'm in the position of being a little bit of a manipulator. I'm in the power position.
There's kind of a power differential there.
Yeah, and so I think fear of the Lord, and to remind each other of this. And I know in my own history of doing this kind of ministry, and I can say this, I think I can be a little out of touch, a little out of sync sometimes with both men and women in ministry now. Now I have a lot of colleagues. I have people that I see in different settings, in different states and countries, where it's not just such a clear-cut boundary as in a Living Waters small group, where it's like, no, I'm so clear in this setting because I'm not free to have one-on-one relationships, but I actually have a lot of one-on-one relationships with good people that I'm imparting to, that sometimes share my struggle or may sometimes be inclined towards me because I'm being, in their minds, generous or magnanimous or, free in my caregiving in a way that is very appealing to them. And, it's so important that I'm aware of, like, okay, it's all great, but what's actually happening here under the surface? And am I starting to act in a partial way? Am I starting to make decisions to choose this person over another because of, I just don't know. What is it? Well, it may very well be that I really like this person. That's a good thing. But there's even a slight sexual thing. There's a little bit of a mixture. There's a little bit too much unacknowledged need love in what's motivating me. And so I'm older now. I'm a little bit more self-aware, and I'm hopefully a little bit more integrated. But at the same time, I'm not above that. And so I have to be open about that. I have to be able to listen to my wife and that and saying, honey, you don't really see what's going on here. I'm like, I don't? Maybe I don't. So whenever I'm like, no, that's no. Like whenever I'm like that with my wife, I know I'm in trouble.
A little bit too invested.
Yeah. Oh, it's just knee jerk. It's like, nope.
Yeah.
No, now I'm defending something that I have to at least examine. Right? And so, thank God for wise, not very defensive wives. We don't all have them.
I really appreciate the mixture thing. That's been really helpful for me. And
because it can be good stuff.
Yeah.
There can be mostly good stuff, but there's this like maybe dark thread.
Yeah. And it's like, I need to bring this to the light with somebody. I need to be aware of this. Because I don't want this possibly really good and maybe kind of needed pastoral relationship to go south. Yeah. At least in my fantasy or whatever, So helpful to know that, I can allow mixed motivations and I'm not above that. So just to be aware of that. It's not to be like,
No, it's honestly, it's normal.
Yeah, exactly.
And if we accepted it, not assimilated it, but accepted that human beings just do that,
right?
Then we're not the radioactive human being. it gets radioactive if you've never learned that.
Right.
And that was never a part of your training. And you actually established some ruts in your approach to people, especially wounded people wounded like you possibly, or in a complementary way.
Yeah.
In a way that made that power differential dangerous.
That's good. Why does porn kill temperance?
Because porn is,
I know you've touched on this a little
from
bit.
beginning to end, it's unreality. It's demonic.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist in reality. It exists among sex-trafficked, drug-addled, wounded people that are just in such darkness. They're willing to participate in the falsehood that two people are experiencing pleasure, rather than mutually degrading themselves. And so those of us who are weak and vulnerable and inclined to that darkness, suggesting we still have some ourselves, myself included, we enter into that, and it impregnates our mind and heart with unreality, so that we're unable to even live in an ordered way in reality.
Yeah.
We think, oh no, that's what I really need. I really need to meet a woman who looks like that.
Yeah.
I really need a man like that. So then you're grieving
Yeah.
a demon.
Yeah.
God isn't allowing me to be utterly crippled by demons.
Yeah.
God isn't going to allow the winged monkeys to pick me up and throw me out.
Right.
You know, so it's just complete, it's unreality upon unreality.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. I mean, it used to be, you know, in my day, in my porn heyday, you had to go to a theater. Or you had to go to
magazines. I'm gonna go pick up some magazines.
No, you did. You had to shame yourself in the public square.
Bet.
Utterly. Now it's just like, oh, I've got my new device. I can get it so quickly.
Right.
I know how to leap over all the covenant eyes, and I can get whatever I want whenever I want it on my new gleaming device. No one's gonna know anything.
Yeah. iPhone 60 or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Thomas Aquinas says that lust sort of breeds a dullness of sense and an inability to puncture reality. I think it's really true. Like there's like a dullness. It kind of scrambles our ability to be present in reality.
Yeah.
And to appreciate reality, to give oneself in reality. Yeah. You know? So, and even to your point earlier about how to see people rightly, and that they, you know, how dare you make them in your image? They're made in God's image. How do we dignify them? Porn also sort of influences us to see people as characters in our own fantasy. Maybe it's not pixels on a screen we're addicted to anymore, but porn sort of trains our minds, so to speak, to see people as sexual objects. Yeah. And so to just break not only from actually looking at porn, but also breaking that kind of fantasy that we all too often go to.
Yeah, and it's the sexualizing of, how do I put this? It's not just the sexualizing, it's the desecrating, it's the corrupting of our normal need for love and connectedness. Yeah. Out of which a whole sexual union could arise. Sure. It may or may not. And if it doesn't for us, because we remain unmarried for any number of reasons, so be it.
But you're even saying that, like, for example, someone with SSA, like SSA is a kind of indication that someone needs same-sex connection. Yeah. You know? Yeah. I mean, even that you're saying like that, the experience of SSA could actually lead And what I mean here, to a good connection, meaning that it's indicating a kind of
Yeah.
need that you have, a valid need, if you will.
because you're willing to go deeper
Exactly.
than the eroticization, the romanticization of what you're experiencing, and for that to be an inciting factor, a compelling factor in relationship. How healthy is that? I think what porn does, it corrupts our normal need for love and connectedness, period.
Yeah.
And so it violates, divides our capacity to mobilize in our imperfect but whole enough self-offering. It just does that over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And when you think of how addictive porn is, and how many tens of thousands of vile scenarios have impacted one's imagination. It's hard to even want to quantify that. But at the level of its impact, it's so profound.
Mm-hmm.
And so to just say, if you're going to flee, if you're going to be scrupulous, if you're going to take decisive action, to cut off your hand or pluck out your eye or cut off your foot, aim that towards pornography. And
you can't go wrong.
No, you can't go wrong. And do this, in order to do this, you've got to be connected with other people. So even though your connection may well begin by, I just got to stop doing this. I've got to stop killing myself. I'm connecting with a person. Yeah. So that's a little bit of a bridge to connecting in humility and through acknowledging a shameful, difficult part of oneself. So you're being invited into a relationship, even though you've got a ways to go. But I would say, if you're going to act decisively, do so against porn in order to live in capital R reality, to have the opportunity for ordered relationship with friends, spouses to be.
Last question, which I think really relates. How does temperance help you discern and delight in beauty?
Yeah. Well, Gerald May says addicts can't meditate. And so the person who is always thinking about their next fix, what's going to please me now? What's going to immediately please me? And with an object that is actually alien to real order. So it's going to require more and more of that in order for me to get my equilibrium back. As we get free, as temperance helps us to not look to porn. And again, I want to be clear with those who are overcoming sexually addictive patterns, including porn patterns. I'm not saying don't get too hard on yourself if you have an occasional failure. Honestly, because, one failure in 3 weeks is so much better than masturbating 3 times a day. So give yourself much grace to get sober. Sure. And don't be scrupulous. And I can't, I've done it again. I'm going to blow my head out. Don't be wise in that regard. But as we get over whatever it is that we're just too attached to, that we think about all the time, then it creates holy space. And I hope the regaining of strength of will to say yes to what is beautiful, and to be able to hold the gaze of, and I would use 2 examples. The one would be in our prayer life and in our being before the Lord and in time spent before the altar, whether that's in our own little prayer cells and we're looking at a little lean cross or little divine mercy image, or whether we're at church and we're really before what I hope for all of you is a holy space, pre or post Mass, or pre or post a wonderful musical worship set, where that's where I think the visual images are so helpful. Mm-hmm. True symbols of what is holy, true icons matter, and to be able to behold them, and to stay present to them, and to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord. Nothing new under the sun. I'm a convert, so I would tend to think, oh, I know so much about religious icons now that I've been a Catholic for 12 years. Like, hello, it's centuries old. David wanted to look upon the beauty of the Lord, to behold his beauty in the temple. Yeah. So I think that requires a kind of temperance. Yeah. To look like God, we have to spend a lot of time looking at him. And we have access to that through Jesus. It's not like we get smitten as we might have, in another era. And so I think the beauty of the Lord, and I would see the beauty of our relationships with being able to enjoy our spouses. And, like I said, just coming home a little bit, just aware I've given out a lot has been taken from me. I need a lot when I come home. And that can involve many things, not the least of which is just a focused conversation of just valuing this person whom I've missed, and drawing upon just all that she is. Yeah. And how she sees reality, and what her needs are, and her fine wisdom, and her sweet take on things, sometimes a provocative take, but in all of that, it's lovely. It makes me love her. My friends, being able to be with the people that I care about, and to have the presence of mind and heart to just delight in them. I delight in you, Marco. You're a delightful man. And I have opportunity to partake of something beyond you in working with you and engaging with you. And it's food for my soul.
Thank you, bro.
So that I can partake of something of the Lord in whose image you are made, strengthens who I am. And that I can behold that and draw from that. Yeah. It's life-giving.
This is good, brother. We only have one more chapter.
I know.
This has been a great series.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for writing the book.
Thank you. But I think it was your idea and Annette's.
Katie.
Katie?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my daughter. To do this, to talk about it more.
Yeah.
Open it up a little bit.
It really was Katie's idea. That
beautiful.
we elucidate more about what chastity is through this book. And it's been really great. And Temperance, I think, is a beautiful reminder that I actually have a capacity to respond well whenever I bump up against a very familiar and maybe shameful temptation. I can respond well. It's not just about temptation response, but it was just a really helpful reminder.
It is, and that I can prevail.
Yeah.
As I become aware, as I become more healed, more whole. Yeah. As parts of me that are malnourished or exaggerated or so underdeveloped, as those things kind of kick in a little bit.
Exactly.
I can work it. I can say, no, I can do this. Yeah. I can get through this. Yeah. I can have the hard conversation.
Right.
Or I can wait a little bit. Mm-hmm. And so many things about our emotions, our appetites, things more clearly tied to chastity. Yeah. That we can we can be masterful over, not to snuff them out,
Right.
but to honor them and to give them rightful place, and free ourselves from the tyranny of just a part of us.
Mm.
We have a hand in ordering ourselves. And I think that's temperance.
Mm. Well, thank you, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week for our last episode. So you definitely want to join us and make sure you get this book, shopdesertstream.org. All right. God bless you guys.